In this video I will talk about the philosophy of nature and empirical physics. And my view as a Hegelian is that everything, that's more of a Neoplatonic view, but that's just to give the broad picture. Everything emanates from the one, and everything comes back, is brought back to unity by the speculative activity of the philosopher. So the truth about nature is emanation, but the process of coming to self-understanding of nature is also a process of evolution. So this is how emanation and evolution are reconciled. And the way I see it, Darwinism and cosmological evolution is an idea in the mind of God to represent himself, his own process. But strictly speaking, I'm not a Darwinian or a cosmologist. I don't believe that the universe was created 13 billion years ago or so. But I understand that it must be nonetheless explained, because if God is made real, he must explain all the thoughts ever produced by mankind, including Darwinism and cosmological evolution. So yeah, I will first adopt a naturalist point of view. Man is a teleological creature. He acts purposefully, and a final cause is that which sets into motion, brings about movement and change by an aim or a goal, a telos in Greek, an end purpose which is not yet there. So it's a negative, that which does not yet exist, which brings about movement. And modern physics rejects teleology. But if you adopt a cosmological Darwinian perspective, nature produces man, and man acts teleologically. Think about Human Action by Ludwig von Mises. Mises says that action is purposeful behavior, and he says that we should distinguish the natural hard sciences and the science of action, which he calls praxeology, because in man there is purpose. So even if the physicists don't believe in purposeful nature, man is a product of nature, a part of nature, and he acts purposefully, or at least he has the illusion of acting with an end goal, with an aim, with something he's aiming at. So the physicists, when they explain nature, they fail to express that even if you adopt a cosmological viewpoint, nature produced man, and man produced purpose and meaning, and this must be explained in physical terms if you are logically consistent. But yeah, another consideration is that in Die Bestimmung des Menschen by Fichte, Fichte says that through man, nature contemplates herself, and Schelling says that we are nature philosophizing. We are, when we think about nature, we are thinking about our own being. I am a natural creature, and from a cosmological standpoint, which I don't believe is true, but I nonetheless try to explain it. From a cosmological standpoint, the me that you see is the product of 13 or so billion years of cosmic evolution, 4 billion and a half or whatever years of Darwinian organic evolution. So I carry within myself, within my body, the entire history of the cosmos, because the atoms which constitutes my being were produced in the explosion of a star. And that's Krauss, I don't know his name, the guy who wrote A Universe Out of Nothing, who said that forget Jesus, the stars died so that you could be you could be alive. So the stars sacrificed themselves because they imploded, and they created, in a way, they transformed their simple elements into complex heavy elements, which later produced all the heavy atoms that we know, and which enabled the creation of the Earth and the development of life on Earth and so on. So that's a way of looking at things. But Um, um, so yeah, the stars, I once had this idea, the stars can't speak, but I am made of stardust, and so are you, whoever you're watching this, and we can speak. So in a way, the stardust we are composed of has, through Darwinian evolution, elevated itself to the ability to think. Matter has become thinking. Um, and yet Fichte said that each individual consciousness is a window of consciousness. He doesn't use the word, but yeah, that each thinking consciousness is nature holding up a mirror to itself. It is nature thinking itself. And he says that all the viewpoints existent in nature is the complete consciousness that nature has of itself and that the universe has of itself. And all these windows, my purpose by making these videos is to try to connect windows of consciousness together and to be the link between all the individual minds and this interconnected self-reflection of nature upon itself is cosmotheism, which I don't strictly believe is true, in the sense that, like I said, I believe that nature is an emanation of a logical idea. I'm a Hegelian, but a Hegelian, if he's truly Hegelian, he must explain the non-Hegelian, anti-Hegelian viewpoints and philosophies, and that's true Hegelianism. So yeah, and yeah, and when we think about nature, when we are within nature in the realm of time and space and matter, we have our being in it, and we, through the perception, we only perceive singular objects. A perception is always singularized, but through the thinking activity we can transform what is given, the singular object, and subsume and judge, in the sense of to sublate the singular object that we perceive, this rose, this river, this tree, whatever, this building, this whatever, and you predicate a universal determination. So you reflect upon the singular object by thinking about its universal properties, and this is the beginning of thought. And Hegel says in an introductory course to logic and philosophy that if you want to know what uh, a rose is, you first have to understand what a plant, a vegetal, a plant is, and you have to understand what an organic body is, and you have to understand what a body is, and you have to understand what a figure is, and you have to understand what space is, and that in the end, a rose is just a determination of space. So if you want to understand what a rose is, you have to understand geometry, quantum physics, relativity, the whole of physics, the whole of chemistry, the whole of biology, and only then you have the concept of what a rose is. And without thought, rose is just something that is painful and but smells good and is quite beautiful. But you have to elevate yourself to the thought of the universal. And nature is always changing, is always moving, is always singularized. And through thinking activity, we transform the singularities into universals, which we transform the unceasing change into set, fixed laws and regularities, and what is transient into what is permanent. And this is only for the mind. And the difference between empirical physics and speculative physics is that empirical sciences begin with the singulars, and they transform singularities and singular objects into universal determinations, which are what Hegel calls Reflexionsbestimmungen, which are determinations of reflection. And a reflection is always that which is opposed in a dual side. But Hegel says that that is the first step towards the thinking consideration of nature. But once you've elevated yourself to the level of empirical physics, you have to go even beyond and transform the Reflexionsbestimmungen into speculative. You have to unite the opposed determinations of empirical physics into a speculative a unity which contains both the universal and the singular. This is what Hegel calls Wirklichkeit, actuality. And yeah, that's just an introduction, but I would like to say that when we speak of nature, we imagine it's trees, rivers, birds, fishes, whatever, or Darwinian selection. But nature is just the world of time, space, and matter. And this consideration of nature, in my view, is an idea in the mind of God. And for Hegel, nature is the fallenness, the alienation of the eternal logical idea. And that's why nature is rational, whether you look at it from a verstandisch point of view, the point of view of the understanding, or a speculative point of view, the point of view of reason. In both cases, nature is rational because it is the reflection, the mirror of the logical idea. And when we speak in common language, at least in English and in French, the nature of a thing, what is the nature of this or that? The nature here means the essence. To be true to your own nature means to be true to your own essence, or the concept. But Hegel shows that the telos, the purpose of the essence, is to become concept. But the nature of a thing is its concept, and to grasp the nature of nature, you have to grasp the concept of nature. And yeah, that's what I wanted to say. That's just an introduction, but yeah.